Hi everyone, it's Mel Gabby, and I'm going to talk about how to design a soul-led life. So, what is a soul-led life? I didn't realize until recently that what I'd been doing since 2016, when I started asking myself, do I want to carry on doing the work that I was doing? And do I want to carry on getting burnout, stressed, and even when I had holidays and free time, just feeling so exhausted all the time. And so sometimes we get these little nudges and a calling to either start doing more things that we enjoy, or even reconsidering whether or not that's a career we want to carry on doing, or even retire. It depends on where you are in your journey. And there's lots more people who are questioning these things these days. So I wanted to explore a bit about how to design a soul-led life and what that means. So have you ever felt like you were living someone else's version of your life? Like you tick the boxes, done what is expected, but your soul still feels restless. So I'm, as you know, a therapist, a coach, a guide, and I've spent 2 decades helping people break free from burnout, people pleasing, and survival mode to build lives that are aligned, empowered, and even soul led. So, in terms of speaking about designing a soul led life, this is for anyone who's really ready to stop living on autopilot and start running deeper into your truth. And whether this means leaving a toxic relationship, rediscovering creativity, or simply learning to say yes to yourself again. So, in terms of a soul-led life, you might have these little inklings of an idea, and sometimes it starts really um, small, with wanting to go and visit a particular place, buying a book, doing a course. And so many people I've come into contact with over the years, whether it was through the meetup group that I started my therapy work, or the people that I met with festivals, will often say, I really want to do that, I've been thinking about, and they don't do it, they don't set off. And we have to take that first step in order for our trajectory of our life to start to unfold in a way that feels much better for us. Even if your starting point is feeling depressed, anxious, and unsure. So I'm going to share a little bit about myself before I go more deeply into that. So most of you know that have watched my videos before or have worked with me, that I spent over 25 years as a therapist, as a healer, as a guide, as a mental health consultant, coach, yoga and meditation teacher, all in the field of helping people to make some shifts and changes so that they not only feel better, but they actually start to turn life into a way that works for them. So I'm not here to really give you any more to-do lists. I'm here to help you remember maybe what your soul already knows. So there was a time when I thought I was doing everything right, but inside I was depleted, burnt out, and disconnected. And then I started listening to something much deeper, and everything began to shift. So part of that shift, it's coming waves for me. I was looking back and I was thinking about the actual different chapters I've had in my life. And if I think that the first chapter was probably around when I got to 18, is I knew I didn't want what I was seeing happening around me. And I didn't want to go for the jobs that seemed to be what a lot of the young women were going for at that time, but I didn't know what else. And it was a friend that said to me one day, why don't you go working away or join the Navy or the Army? And I considered the Army for a short time, and then found myself at Job Centre in Manchester, picking up a job off the board, and took a job working away. And that was the first step of me changing the trajectory of where I didn't even know where I was going. The second sort of chapter was when I came to London thinking I was going to go and travel more parts of the world, and met my partner, and within 18 months had got married, started to have children, and decided I didn't want to carry on working in hotels anymore. I wanted to work in an office and get a job that was easier, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and continue to look after the kids, go to the gym, and go to work. Then I hit a phase after the birth of my second son where I thought, I don't want to do the jobs that I've been doing. And that's when I was led, quite by fluke again, to considering taking up a course. And that was the introduction to the therapy training that I eventually did as a whole diploma. But when I started doing that, I only did it as an introduction. I wouldn't have taken it on. I didn't have the confidence at the time. So I look back at my life and think about the conversations I've had and how these nudges have led to me going down a path that I wasn't expecting. And so I've had these different changes. But when it got to about 2016 is really where I started to think, I wanted to write blogs. I wanted to share the information that I'd learned over the years, because I knew there was so many things that we could share with people that would help them understand, normalize their experience, normalize the mental health issues they were going through, give them some tools to help them turn things around and stop them getting any deeper. I kind of really believed that. And at the time, resources weren't helping people to sort of hack their own mental health in a way. And people had to wait until they could access a service. But at the same time, I didn't realise there was something much deeper going on. So after that, I did take a couple of jobs, but my heart wasn't in them in the same way. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the systems and the services and the supported services to develop and evolve. But my heart wasn't in it. And it was towards sort of around 2018, I took a job. And then in 2019 is when I had a car accident that massively impacted me. And I look back at that, and that was a huge shock to the body. And anyone that's gone through a serious accident knows that, you know, you end up with PTSD and all sorts of things and a lot of pain. And I spent a lot of time on my own and reflecting, and struggled really to even work a couple of days a week. And then, of course, the pandemic came in, and a lot of us were at home, and I'd already been at home a year. But I then also did my training as a yoga teacher, and really connected. Interesting, because only a few months after doing my training is when everyone was experiencing lockdown, and I started teaching online. And I had a meetup group, and I was inviting women from all the different circles that I was connected to come online and share and connect, so that we were able to support each other through that really quite anxiety provoking time for a lot of people. Also, what was good about that, it was I was working from home and never had to go back in the office again, which is what I wanted. So I've gone through these various stages, and when I started getting back on my feet, I started to think about, at the middle of 2022, what would I do next? What did I want to do? And I wanted to get back out there and start and teach yoga live and go to festivals and events and be around the wellbeing community, which is where I spend a lot of time having conversations, normal everyday conversations, in a space that doesn't feel alternative. A lot of people go there and they're exploring things that they're curious and intrigued about. And often we can have a sense of curiosity and intrigue about what we're going to do next. And it can start by something light. So what is a soul-led life? So we know that an ego-led life is often shaped by expectations, fears, survival roles, and the need to please. A soul-led life, on the other hand, is guided by intuition, joy, inner alignment, and presence. So the key signs that you live in a more soul-led life can be that you feel more peaceful, even without being perfect. You're not forcing, you're flowing, you feel guided, you feel more expressive, more creative, and you trust yourself more deeply. And you might even just feel better more of the time when you're in a life that doesn't fit anymore, because it's not that any of those jobs or anything I did was wrong, but when it doesn't fit anymore, you can feel depressed, you can feel a bit disillusioned. And in particular, and because I worked in mental health, I used to see the data, you can really start to ask deeper questions around meaning and purpose. And if you spent too much time analysing that and not putting steps in place to make some small changes while you can, it can really send you down a spiral of feeling really depressed and completely disillusioned. And the further down, sometimes we need to go to those places to really think and reflect and come out with some ideas about what is the next step that we can take, because it depends on where we're at in that journey as to what we could do moving next. And there's all these, especially when you hit midlife, there's all these ideas about who you can work for anymore and the kind of jobs you can do, and things, of course, especially with AI and technology now, have massively changed in the workplace, and the speed in which things change has massively increased. So this isn't about changing and doing anything different. If you want to do the job that you're doing, keep doing that. You want to put money on the table, look after your family, and buy the things that you're buying, that's cool. But this is just about introducing you to this concept of a life that you can create, that you can feel happier and feel more aligned with. So there are things that can block us from living a soul-led life, a life that we enjoy, that we feel invigorated by, where we've got more vitality, and just, you know, even if we don't know what's happening next week, we can just feel just more content being there, more open to different opportunities. But what gets in the way of that is trauma patterns, people pleasing, overfunctioning, or even shrinking from being fully in the person that we are. Then we've got narcissistic dynamics, being the caretaker for other people, or an emotional container, being in a toxic relationship, or the fear of being too much or not enough, and feeling like your truth is inconvenient or not welcome. So it can take some courage to start pursuing what matters to you, especially when people say, "Oh, you know, why do you like that?" Or "Why, you know, why are you doing that thing?" It's still working. Yes, it is, because we've got planes going over at the moment. So designing a soul-led life takes a bit of practice, and sometimes that's where I help people to consider how can they move from where they are right now to where they want to go. But here's some of the key foundations that might help is silence and self-connection. So it's very difficult to hear the stirrings of your own soul, your intuition, or your own ideas and inspiration when you're constantly busy or in chaos. So if you're in chaos in relationships and drama in those relationships, and you're constantly caught in other people's stories, you're distracted by social media, or constantly in a state of stress, these are the things that are the antithesis really to connecting with yourself. So you can't hear yourself in all of that. So we have to find some space. And that's why I do the 30-day challenges and the 7-day challenges. In fact, I shouldn't call them challenges, because actually they're programs, they're series designed to connect us, to get us into a space every time in the daytime, to become more mindful and connect with a topic that can be inspiring, that leads us to having some deeper reflections. And that's why I always include some journaling questions, some breath work, walking in nature. It's about giving yourself as much chance as possible to connect with your inner voice. And if you are feeling that chaos and you're overwhelmed, you do need to get out in nature so that you can just start to feel calmer and more relaxed and not so overwhelmed. And I talk to people about the mental health continuum, and green is when you feel okay and you're ticking over and you're managing work and life, and amber is where you start to feel stressed and anxious. And we can have that from time to time, but now it's becoming more of a constant. And then as we turn into red, we're not sleeping so well, we're not eating properly, we're waking up at crazy hours in the morning. We've got too many things on our plate, we're feeling overwhelmed, and we start tipping into red. And if we're tipping into red, we need to put some things in place to move us back at least into amber. And that is through deep breathing, box breathing, 4 in, 4 out. It's through taking walks in nature and grounding, taking shoes off, feeling the grass between your at the bottom of your feet, going for walks on the beach if you live near the coast. The salt in the water and the sea air and the dramatic nature of nature can really make us feel more alive and invigorated. Meditation, if you can meditate, if not, practice mindfulness. And that's really about switching everything off and just sitting and tuning in to your heartbeat, to your breath. Light a candle, watch the flame, and do that for 5 minutes, like every hour, and start practicing mindfulness. So it's about the tools and techniques that move us out of crises, overwhelm, moves the dial more back towards a general state of unease. And we really need to move back into being okay. It just really depends on how much time you've been experiencing any stress and impact. And sometimes that's where we definitely need support. We need to be able to talk to somebody about what's going on, about what our worries are, and then how to put some small tools in every day so that we can get out of that state. It's also about being aware of how much we lean on or are dependent on our devices, on our TV, on drugs, alcohol, food, and what steers us away from the messages that comes up from our own inspiration. Creativity and expression is really important. So creativity isn't just about painting, I used to think it was, or drawing. It's about how you speak, how you dress, how you dance, whether you're right, and how you express your truth. So creativity can be that you just love cut clothes, and you like creating your wardrobe in a particular way. And there's a lot of women I see on Instagram that do that, and it's quite interesting to watch their perspectives on clothes and on designers. Might be through dance, it might be that you enjoy dance class, or that you do speaking events, or you meet with your friends. Being creative is about connecting with yourself, and how do you express yourself in the world through whatever way that you want to channel that. And that can change over time, especially as you grow in more confidence. It's also about trust and timing. So we're all in soul groups, and sometimes when we say yes to healing, to doing something new, like when I go to the festivals, I always connect with someone new. And I go to the sound baths and I connect with the lady that's running that, and I enjoy the experience, and I talk to other people. And so that's great, because you're in a space where people also are interested and enjoying what you are. And then when you feel more connected, it can sometimes just feel great, as well as you don't have to be on your own all the time, or connected and plugged into all of the gizmos we've got to distract us at the moment. It's also about integration and invitation. So, for example, if you go to a wellbeing event and you've gone to some workshops, after you've experienced the sound or a talk or spoken to someone at a store, we need our system to be able to integrate that information and get the wisdom from the messages that we receive. We need to write a few notes in our journal to say, hey, remember to, so that we honor the decisions that came to us in that moment and follow it through. And then notice how we feel in those conversations. Where did we feel uplifted, inspired, and invigorated? And so we go for more of that. And where did we feel more relaxed, more at peace, and receive some healing? Maybe that's in a sound healing workshop, or a massage, or a yoga group that we went to. And so we might get the different things that we need from those different spaces. And so ask yourself, what is it that you need to remember about the past as well, that you enjoyed, that you loved to do, that made you feel more creative, more alive, and have more vitality? And what do you need to let go of that isn't serving you? And it can be something really small, like what you eat for breakfast, disrupts your digestion, or that you drink too much during the week and you want to cool down on that, or spend too much time with people who are constantly complaining, and that can affect the way that the way that you feel and how you view the world. So, and what you're ready to choose, are you choosing your own truth over comfort? Because sometimes we're so happy in the comfort that we don't want to take a stand and do something different, because it threatens it can feel like it's threatening that thing. So just consider where you're at right now, the job that you're doing, the lifestyle that you're living in. If you could make one or two tweaks or changes, what could they be? And it doesn't have to be anything grand, but if you can find a space today to sit in silence and just listen to your breath and your heartbeat, and just ask yourself the question of, if I was able to do one thing that would move me further towards living a life that just was great for me, what would that look like? And the answer might not come straight away, but it's really important to ask the question. So I'm going to do a little guided visualization and help you center on breath, just to connect you with that. So you can listen to this when you're ready, sit back in a chair or lie down on the sofa, just for like 3 or 4 minutes, just so that you can connect. So get comfy in the chair, close your eyes, or on the sofa, lie down. So just take a moment, take a deep breath in, close your eyes, and place your hand on your heart. And just breathe in your body. As you breathe in, notice where in your body there is some tension, and where there feels some freedom in your body. Is there any pain? Is there any parts of your body that's calling your attention? And just breathe into the space and imagine that you're just expanding the energy in your body as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, just release and let go of anything that worries you, just for this moment in time. And what one word or image comes to mind when you ask, what do I need next? That's all you have to do is breathe in and ask yourself that question. If you're an analytical person that goes into logic, just notice that, okay? So just breathe that in. And then if you've got a journal, just write in your journal what came to you. And it could be something very simple. I need some water. I need to go and have some lunch. I need to go for a walk. I need to call up my friend that I've kept thinking about but haven't taken any action on yet. So in this next part, I'm going to explore how you shift your mood, motivation and mindset, so that when you get hunches and these inspirations and this clarity, this will help you move forward a little bit more. So we don't have to overcomplicate things, but we often do, especially when it comes to change, healing, or creating a life that we feel happy and content in. And what I've found over the years in my clinical practice, deep personal healing, integrating psychology and spirituality, is that we don't need to fix everything at once. We just start by calming the nervous system, start by taking that breath and connecting and thinking, what do I need to do next? Maybe you just need to lay there for an hour. Maybe you're exhausted. I remember when I was started doing yoga, and I found this really nice yoga studio, but it was in a really stressful period in my working life, and I wasn't sleeping very well. And I go to yoga, and when it got to the meditation, I was falling asleep. And and when we lay down and did yoga nidra, I definitely got some deep healing. But the amount of times I fell asleep early on when I was doing yoga, it was really became evident that I wasn't at burnout, but I needed to start doing something different. So if we can get the brain and the body into a more regulated state, everything else becomes possible. Learning, motivation, connection, focus, and long-term change. So if we think about the nervous system, for example, and I've talked about how after my car accident, I had PTSD. And that often deserves its own space, really. But I've been through trauma a few times, and in particular the car accident massively. Not just was an experience of the car accident, but it also brought up previous traumas that I'd experienced. So the body can keep replaying that trauma long after it's passed. So I know that personally, having experienced that, and after years of the original trauma, you can still feel like that you're waiting for the next shoe to drop. Once you're in that fight and flight state, it can feel really difficult to get out of. And I had a combination of that time of using, after I had the car accident, I used sound healing frequency music every morning. When I did the yoga, it wasn't quite yoga early on, it was really just a lot of stretching because my body was so tight. It was just the after effects, really. I had a lot of stillness, so I practiced a lot of mindfulness. I slept a lot, so I had to just honor the body and get the sleep where I could. I did some meditation. I think that's when I bought the paints. I can't even really paint that well, but I like doodling, and I just found that when I was working, that at the end of the day, I needed to switch my mind and do something different. And doodling was a good sort of transition experience of just sitting in the chair and doodling away. So, but also other patterns around previous traumas that can be like mind loops can also come up. And that's why practicing mindfulness is really important, because you can really start to become aware of the kind of thoughts that you have. Because when we have a particular train of thoughts, it will activate a certain series of feelings and emotions, and then also activate memories. And not all of them are in our conscious awareness. So just start by getting honest about where you are right now, where you're feeling content, whether you're low, anxious, feel a bit hopeless, or maybe you're feeling really full of vitality and focusing on the excitement. You've got some things coming up that are really good. So it's okay wherever you are. It's not about pulling everyone out of that space and consistently feeling good all the time. Often that's not possible. But it's about when you start using some of the tools that we know in research, have got some evidence behind them, that can really start to help us. And the more that we combine those tools and access them, every day we can start to feel those shifts. So that even if we go down that spiral towards depression or hopelessness or fear, those spirals, we don't stay down as long, and they get shorter and they become less intense and eventually less frequent. Trust me on that. That's what's happened to me. So then ask, what do you want to feel instead? So take 30 seconds, stop this video and pause and check in with what do you want to feel instead. And then ask yourself, what would you like to feel at the end of 7 days, at the end of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? What would you rather feel? So this is a good framework to set the process in place. And have a look, if you're interested in 30 days and 90 days, have a look at my either level 1 or level 2 30-day program and listen to the introduction and the video on why 30 days and any other videos that draw your attention, because there's so much brain science out there and ideas about how we can really start to make some changes in our brain that will, once we harness what we're doing every day, will make a big difference. It's also really good to understand your own brain chemistry and your motivation systems. So this is where the science does come in, but I'll break it down into what I understand it to be. Because your brain runs the neurons of what fired in the neural pathways, and how the messages go to different parts of the brain are actually fired and transmitted through chemical messengers. So we need to understand what the chemistry kind of does and how we can use that to help us move forward. So for example, I'll give you some idea. Dopamine, a lot more of us are aware of what dopamine is and what it gives us. It's your go-to chemical. It's the go-get chemical. It's like speed for the brain. It gives us drive, motivation, and focus. But where the problem is if we constantly check our phones, scroll, are distracted by short-term pleasure, we're burning up the dopamine on things that don't take us forward to our bigger goals. We actually end up wasting a lot of time. So if you have a look at your phone and see how much time you spend online and how much of that time is purposeful, other than, I don't know, finding a recipe for your cake or how to sew a pair of jeans, how to create a course that you want to sell. The way that you use time can be the difference between you creating a life that works and financing that life and staying in the same mind traps and work traps. Okay, so we need to think about how we're using that dopamine. Like I said, I get dopamine spending time in nature, finding new places, exploring, and that gives us a whole physiological experience, not just tapping into the neural pathways in the brain. The next one's oxytocin. Is the connection chemical. So it's the chemical most synonymous with you meet someone on a dating site or at work, and you start chatting to them and you exchange numbers and you text, and that's where you get some dopamine hits. Go out on a few dates, really like spending time together, and over 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, the connection chemical starts to kick in, which is oxytocin. So it's like heroin, actually. It's called that in the sort of circles on psychology. It's how calming and bonding can feel. So we release it when we feel close to others, when we hug, or even through eye contact. But it also increases through pro-social activity, purpose, and connection. So that's why we have to be really mindful about who we build the connections up with, because if we date someone that actually we miss red flags and they're not that good for us, within a short period of time, especially if they activate some behaviors that can be more manipulative and divisive, then that connection can be created, and it's harder to walk away from those relationships and or even avoid spending time with anybody that eventually isn't good for us. And then we've got natural endorphins in the body, and they're like the natural painkillers. So we know that if you go to the gym, you do loads of reps and go slimming, you can release these endorphins in the body. And they're released during laughter, exercise, and risk taking. Then there's another one called Anandamide, and that's the bliss molecule, and it increases feelings of peace and flow. And I feel peace and flow when sometimes I've arrived somewhere in my camper van, I'm sat by the beach, I'm practicing, not purposely and consciously all the time, mindfulness, or even through meditation. And it's hard to say with meditation because you don't always get the feeling of peace and flow. Sometimes it brings up other feelings, you know, like grief and anger. And so you can't say that you just, if you meditate every day, you're just going to feel peace and flow, but you will access that at some point. Serotonin, used a lot in medication for depression, is what helps us regulate our mood, confidence, and sense of safety. So it's important to know that you're already producing those chemicals, but probably not in a ways that support your bigger life goals. So when we understand the brain's reward system, we can begin to make better use of it. So for example, if you go to the doctors because you feel depressed and anxious, often they will give you either antidepressant meds or anti-anxiety. And I know after I had the birth of my first son, when I experienced depression, at that time, when I look back now, it was actually a massive transition I was going through. Not classic depression, but I didn't like what I was experiencing. It was a double-edged sword. And I went to the doctors, they gave me antidepressants, but they made me feel so zoned out. I think I took them for a couple of weeks and then stopped taking them. And instead, I wanted to go down the natural route of finding things that would release. I didn't know at the time about all these chemicals, but I was finding things that would release those chemicals in my body and getting a job that I wanted to do. I started going to the gym, started spending more time in nature, and did aerobics, especially on my second son. Did a lot of aerobics, and that slowly helped me start to feel better over time. It's also about getting out of our comfort zone and going into the growth zone. Comfort zone is here of what we do every day without thinking about it. Learning happens when we actually stretch outside of our comfort zone. If we stretch too much, we can break and it can be overwhelming. And so we've got to work out what those small stretches can be. And I saw this a lot when I was running a meetup group, and people would say to me, it's taken me months to get off the sofa and join here, and I wanted to come. But I was too anxious. But eventually they moved out of their comfort zone, got off the sofa, came to the group, and then realised that they really enjoyed it and made some great connections. I don't know if you can hear this rain, but it's massively pouring down. I'm gonna, let's see if I can, you can't see it hitting the window because the, it's a little bit, the camera's gone a little bit funny. Right, so where was I? I lost where I was. Okay, bear with me a minute. Soul-led life. There you go. I got distracted by the rain. I love the rain, especially the sound of the van. So I'm going to put my mic nearer my voice in case I need to be a bit louder over the sound that's here. So we talked about the comfort zone and the growth zone. So here's the thing. You've got to find the sweet spot. Edge work. You want to nudge yourself just outside your comfort zone, enough to create a change, but not to put your system into panic. So we need to go towards the edge of what our previous experience has given us. So here's the thing. There's a lot that blocks our ability to start, like internal self-talk, fear of failure, past experiences with drama, or controlling relationships, and that feeling that something bad is about to happen around the corner. So sometimes, especially if we've experienced trauma and we've got an issue with safety, is we have to create, and that's why I go for that 10 minutes every day. Find a safe space in your house, in your car, in your van, where you can sit and connect with yourself and do some breathing exercises and ground yourself so that you feel safe, so that any negative self-talk, you can challenge that. And if sometimes people need help with that, to identify and work through that, especially if you've had a lot of drama and controlling relationships, because that can really activate old patterns and they can feel a challenge to let go of. But it's possible. You can make those shifts and change. And these are all sort of internal resistances. But momentum is magic. So once you start moving, it gets easier to keep going. Again, that's why I do the 30-day programs. Do something every day. Slowly create those new neural pathways, you release those chemicals, you start to get the benefit of it. Even if you go to the gym or go swimming like I did a few months ago, and my body felt tired, I need to sleep more. And then I decided to go in the evening because I thought I'll have a good sleep at night. And I started to get the benefit of that. And also, many of us start by looking for motivation outside of ourselves, which is called extrinsic motivation. Sometimes that's rewards like money, recognition, job status, or just waiting for something outside of ourselves. And that's fine. We can stay there and we can eventually burn out from that. So, what sustains us longer term and in terms of change is intrinsic, meaning, purpose, passion, connecting with why it's important to you. What's your why? So, research shows us that people who have a strong sense of purpose also tend to have more social connections and pro social behaviors. So, that boosts that feel good chemicals that I've just mentioned. So, once you connect with your why, like helping women through pregnancy or advocating for elders who need support, the system starts demanding more autonomy. You begin to crave freedom and flow, and you begin to move towards mastery. So when you first start doing it, like when I started in 2016 and I wanted a blog, initially I was trying to design a website, and that was really difficult. And then I was trying to write blogs, and I got people to help me edit them, and it was really labor intensive. And then slowly, I started building my website. And then, all those feelings that it evokes, sometimes you want to give up. Can I be bothered? And I've had that over the course of even when I'm doing my 30-day programs. I've asked myself a few times, why am I doing this? And then when I realized my why wasn't about being online and being present and then looking amazing or anything like that. It was about being able to share what I know I've shared with many clients over the years that has made a difference to their lives, and how we pull all these different facets together to make a plan that works for you. And how when I've implemented that, I've noticed the impact. So when I've had mind loops, and I did a video on mind loops, and they've been pervasive, like there all the time, and I couldn't get out of them. When I practiced some of the things that I knew that worked, it was much easier then to move forward and start experiencing life in a way that actually benefited me more. It's also about mastering your emotions. So often we can feel irritated and frustrated, and sometimes we've got a low tolerance for trying something new and give up really easily. And so when you find your why, it's easier to keep pushing through, even when it looks like nothing's happening, just because it matters that you did it, that you tried. It's also about building a system that supports you. So, like practical tools. So, you need to prepare your brain and body for success. So, I was saying that on my introduction to my 7-day challenge that I've been doing online on YouTube, is rather than just seeing something and thinking, oh, I might do that, you actually have to look at your calendar, the time of the day you're going to do it, and say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put myself on that program, do that course, go to the gym at these times of the week for the week. And at the end of every week, look back and say, yes, I did it. I made it. I got there. Okay. So we all sort of fall backwards sometimes, but we've got to get up and carry on and reset every day and reset every week, because the body, and the mind we're prepared for success, but we have to be able to ignore the patterns that have been getting in the way of us moving forward in a way that works for us, and just doing it. And even the very small things. On a Sunday night, you can sit there and say, okay, what are 3 things do I need to do this week that will help me feel like I'm moving forward towards my goal, so you keep moving forward. And then knowing the best times of the day for different types of tasks, activities, reading, admin, work. My best time of the day for really getting focused and doing projects is in the morning and after 8 at night. My worst time of the day is in the afternoon for having certain conversations. So you need to create a schedule that supports you rather than drains you, and that's really crucial. And then using those tools like mindfulness, gratitude, breathwork, visualization, journaling, and novelty that rewrites and rewires those habits. So this builds the foundation to move us towards flow, the optimal state where time expands, creativity flows, and you feel fully immersed. Flow is healing, and in fact, Dr. Huberman spoke on a study with veterans from the Pendleton program who were doing talk therapy and surfing, like sea for surfing, shows significant improvements in their PTSD. The reason: surfing forced focus, attention, and novelty, key flow triggers. Okay, so for me, it's been kayaking and paddleboarding. I did that a few times. And when I did paddleboarding for the first time last year, my brain went into overdrive. I literally couldn't focus because my body went into that panic that you get, that you feel sometimes with PTSD. But I was able to talk myself through it because I knew what was happening. So rather than going with the panic, I was able to say, right, okay, just breathe, slowly go into the water, slowly grab the board. And I actually said to the tutor, this is what happens to me when I enter into those sort of spaces. Because when you sit on a paddleboard, my brain's quite trying to balance itself, and yet I'm on a paddleboard that is moving all over the place. And I'm trying to compute, like when you first start driving, where the paddleboard goes, how I get on it, how I balance, how I stand up, all of that. So brain goes into a bit of overdrive. So Dr. Huberman found that with those veterans, that the talk therapy helped, but actually going out and doing new experiences is what forces the focused attention and the novelty. Dopamine, endorphins, serotonin. Okay, so this means that the past starts to dissolve and the mind stops spinning. And we need to do that a few times to really get the benefit, moving from anxiety to joy. Oh, it's really pelting down here today. So then it's about learning what works for you. So you'll need to track what helps and what hinders. So I'm going to carry on and do some more videos on this at a later stage. This will be like part 2, maybe a part 3, to creating a soul-led life, because there's plenty for you to get on with. So listen to the video, maybe give it a listen a couple of times, get your journal out and start thinking about what it is that comes to you as a result of listening to this and how that fits in with where you are. So on the next segment, I'll be exploring more about learning what works for you and what throws you out of flow. When do you feel most satisfied, and what makes you lose momentum? And we'll do more of that. So if there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's you have more influence over the way that you feel, what you experience, and the direction of your life than you have ever been led to believe. Change doesn't always happen overnight, but it can, and it does happen. And the beautiful thing is that the more you understand how your brain and body work, the more equipped you are to create those small shifts that lead to lasting transformation. It starts with awareness and intention and a willingness to show up for yourself, not perfectly, but consistently, and keep it to yourself. Don't share all these ideas and dreams with other people, especially when they don't believe in them themselves, because that can really throw you off track, and you don't need that early on when you're starting out. And if you fall off track, that's okay. Get up and do it again. What matters is how you get back on. And over time, those little wins will compound into a life that feels more like yours, one filled with purpose, energy, satisfaction, and flow. Don't we all want that? So if this episode spoke to you, then and you're ready to explore, either contact me on the link below for a Kickstarter session, which is 3 sessions, or join my free 30-day program, level 1 or level 2, either one. Just look at the topics. They're on the playlist, so you can see the topics on there, as long as you do the introduction or join the group program. And I will be releasing the links to Patreon once that's up and running. So if you want that deeper support to help you design something that's going to work for you on a week by week basis, then do contact me, because I can do 6-week and 12-week programs as well. And it's just about getting you moving. So if you've liked this, like and subscribe. Let me know what you liked about it. And if you want any more information, you can email me at melgbb555@hotmail.com. Thank you.